everyone, and welcome to today's Westfield Community Seminar, Scaling Your Impact, Knowing When and What to Grow. My name is Mary Kay, and I am the Community Engagement Manager here at Centre Group, looking after the Westfield Local Heroes program. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to be with us today, whether you're in Centre attending an in-person event or joining us online at home. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the lands on which we meet today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay respects to elders past and present, and also acknowledge the lands on which you all meet today. I'd also like to say a kia ora to those of you joining us from our NZ destinations. Before we jump in, a little bit of housekeeping. Our seminar will run for approximately 45 minutes, where our expert speakers will share their insights with you. Those of you attending in-centre events will then have the opportunity to network and share ideas with other attendees. If you're joining online and are a Westfield Local Heroes alumni, you can also join the discussion in our dedicated Q&A thread located in our Alumni Hub Facebook group. Later this week, we will send you an email with a live link to today's video, a take-home resource developed by our panellists, and also a short survey for you to share your thoughts on today's session. Today, we're unpacking what sustainable growth really looks like for community organisations and groups, and the key things to consider when you're looking to scale your operations, programs, or projects. Our aim is to provide you with tangible steps, ideas, and advice on how you can assess your organisation's growth capabilities and areas to strengthen before scaling. To help me navigate what is a very big and complex topic, I am joined by two leaders and founders of community organisations and proud Westfield Local Hero alumni. Dr Judy Friedlander is the founder and director of PlantingSeeds, a not-for-profit organisation delivering hands-on biodiversity education across Australia, including their flagship B&B Highway program delivered in collaboration with schools, councils and government organisations. She is also the 2025 Westfield Bondi Local Hero. And Tim Hewson is the founder and CEO of Mongrels Men, a community-driven charity dedicated to improving men's mental health and connection. What began as casual meetups on Sydney's northern beaches back in 2019 evolved into a registered organisation and charity in 2021 that now services 30 communities across Australia. He was also the 2023 Westfield Warringah Local Hero. So welcome to you both, and thank you so much for joining us today. I know our viewers are going to take so much away from the expertise and knowledge that you both bring in your respective fields. So let's jump in. I think before we get too deep into when to grow, it's really important to establish what growth actually is and what it can look like. So Judy, I think we can all agree, like in different organisations, growth is going to look very different. But how would you define growth, and what did it look like for PlantingSeeds?
I think that firstly, for everyone listening, you really need to think about what are you passionate about? What is your story? What got you started? Think of that big plan, that, the blue sky idea that you have. In my case, I was working as a journalist and for the Sydney Morning Herald, and I was writing about environmental issues and later in television. And I could not understand why more people weren't so concerned about what was happening in the environment, with climate change, with biodiversity loss. And for my sins, I went back to do a PhD in that area. And it's sort of the whole PlantingSeeds thing happened. But the reason why I'm saying that is because you have to have that passion. So success is aiming to get to that big passion. Then you break it down. So think big. Don't think you're going to achieve it overnight. It's going to take years. In PlantingSeeds' case, our flagship project is called the B&B Highway. As you mentioned, it stands for Bed and Breakfasts for Birds and Bees and Biodiversity. And it's recognising that most people don't realise that the urban environment has incredible potential for greening and biodiversity as well. So we started off with 5 in Sydney's eastern suburbs, 5 B&Bs, mainly at schools, and we saw how that basically captured attention. So I said earlier that success really should be framed in terms of quantitative and qualitative. So quantitative, you should be thinking about how are we going to measure this? In our case, it was plants in the ground, people educated. Now we have 16,000 plants, 20,000 people educated, 250 B&Bs in 8 years. But initially we just thought, no, we've got to start and hone and skill. Quantitative means thinking about how you're going to break that down. How many educated, how many people are participating, how many volunteers, what are the skill sets that you're looking for. The other thing is qualitative. Now, I love talking about this because I think that coming from a journalistic background, I'm very interested in communications and framing. And I think that it really helps when you're thinking of your not-for-profit to think of that framing. And I like to talk about a meta frame. And what that means is think about how your concept, like the B&B highway, encapsulates what you're aiming to do. So we live in the age of the info glut, and it's really hard to get your message out. So B&B highway stands for bed and breakfast for birds and bees and biodiversity. It immediately conveys something, then it can be broken down and captures lots of audiences. I'll finish by talking about my favourite marketer. My favourite marketer lived thousands of years ago in ancient Greece, and his name was Aristotle. And his rhetoric theory basically is used in communications today. If you look at any TED Talk, each TED Talk embraces the 3 tenets of rhetoric theory: ethos, pathos, and logos. Okay, what does that mean? Ethos means that your organisation needs to associate with institutions. You need to think about top down, bottom up. So when you're looking at success, think about who those organisations are that are going to give you authenticity and authority and reputation. So we spent a long time working with the Department of Education to get them on board. We succeeded. The CSIRO to help us with citizen science. My university to help with academic research. So that's ethos. Pathos is that emotional story. What is your story? You know, the feel-good stuff. What are the kids saying in our case? What impact has it made? Why are they feeling eco-anxiety? Why are they feeling this is all too much? How is our program helping? And logos is the facts and the stats. And communication is important, and I'm a big believer in reaching out and getting media coverage, because in this day and age, you really need to get out there and cut across, as I mentioned, the info glut, the framing, social media, your own media, schools, broader media, that type of thing.
No, I love the B&B highway. It's just such a great market. It's a marketing dream. That probably really helps you cut through that media landscape. And I think what I love about that response is that it's not necessarily about becoming bigger all the time. It's about strengthening what your vision is. Also then identifying what's feasible and delivering a service or project that's then going to align those two. I know that funding can play like a really big part of that, and really helps determine what groups or organisations are capable of delivering. And I know through reading a lot of our Westfield Local Heroes nomination forms, often our grant funding is put towards delivery of new programs. So Tim, I guess my question for you would be, with an injection of funding, or whether it's large-scale promotional success, like what happens for the Westfield Local Heroes program, is it easy to fall into a trap of growing or scaling too early?
Yeah, the short answer is absolutely. I remember 2023, right? Like, we've just been awarded the Local Hero grant, and I remember being so excited. You know, this idea of giving us the capacity to do all of these things. We wanted to do all of the things, and we, of course, got really excited about these opportunities. But it was also an important opportunity for us to maybe pause for a moment, stop, and actually think about what this means, and then realign to what it is that we're ultimately trying to do as a charity, which is scale and grow our impact. And so for me, it probably made me pause to think about maybe 3 questions at that stage to ask myself. And the first one was, is the pressure to grow and scale actually real? And at this stage, you know, very early on in our in our journey, I remember meeting with other charity CEOs, and they'd say, "So how was your year?" And I'd say, "Well, you know, it was great. We grew in the number of men, and we delivered all these programs and our communities and all these volunteers." And then by the time I actually managed to stop, to pause, to draw breath, they'd say, "And what about your impact?" And so from that moment on, it actually made me reassess who we are and what we do. And so that gave us a lot of focus. And in that case, you know, it made us think about where and how we could invest those funds to be able to have the greatest impact. And so for us, it was fundamentally about sticking with what we already knew that we were doing. The second question was where and how do we want to invest the money? And so for us, it was very early on in our journey as a registered charity. And so that was about sticking to our knitting and continuing to invest into the programs where we knew the impact was already being had.
Yeah.
And the third question to probably ask yourself at that stage is, you know, do you really need to scale? And if you want to, are you actually ready to scale? So are you operationally ready? Are your people ready? Is your funding scalable, and can it match the growth plans that you've got? And is it diverse and secure enough? And then you start to need to look at you know, the mechanics of how you deliver the programs and the impact, whether that's in place and that has longevity. I think the other thing to probably ask yourself is, when asking yourself, do I really need to scale, is are you at that point where you actually have to start saying no to things? You know, that idea of demand actually pulling you forward instead of you having to push and work so hard, where people are actually starting to reach out. They're starting to want to partner with you. They're starting to see, you know, the vision that you've got that Judy talked about as well, and they want to be a part of that. But you have to say no because you have to prioritise and focus. But with partnership comes the opportunity to scale. So, yeah, for me, if you have to start to say no to things, then it's a good sign that you might be ready.
Which I love, because I am someone who is terrible at saying no to most things in my life. And I can imagine in an organisation that is small and starting to develop, that desire to say yes is really prevalent, because you don't want to miss the opportunity. But you're right, it's such a great indicator that demand for your service or program is really high. What I'm also hearing is that consolidation in these moments is actually really key, because you want to be able to assess your growth readiness almost independently of the funding, to ensure that that growth that you're looking to achieve is actually going to be sustainable. I guess out of curiosity, now's a great time more than ever. What did you guys spend your grant funding on? Judy, did you want to start? What did you spend it on?
Yeah, I was going to talk about how I always go on about communication and framing.
Yeah.
And so when you've got something, for example, like the B&B Highway, so you've got your project or your big concept, big picture idea. What you can do is you can tweak that along the way. So you can create little sort of offshoots of that. So we, over the years, have come up with B&B Bites, which is food related to sustainability. B&B Blazer, which is to do with urban heat, which is something we're all experiencing now, and how we can mitigate that with greening in cities and suburbs. And B&B Belongings, really excited about that. So the funding has actually helped us to start that. So earlier I was talking about working with authorities. Mm-hmm. So we now officially have the Aboriginal Education Consultative Group helping us develop curriculum for schools. We've got this fantastic program. We're starting it this month in Sutherland with some Aboriginal students. It's going to be a program that we implement in all schools that we work in, not just with Aboriginal students. So get this, I love this. Apparently it's okay for all people to have a totem species. You don't have to be Indigenous, and it can change in your lifetime, and it can be a number of species. Mm-hmm. So we're asking each child, each student, and the students can be any age actually, right up to high school, can be an adult as well, to choose something that they're passionate about and do a deep dive and consult First Nations elders. And they're going to create poetry, science, citizen science, interviews with First Nations elders, research, and they're going to put it into one huge ebook that's going to be distributed in the community. It's going to be a living resource. So that is a direct result of the funding from Westfield and Centre Group.
Oh, I love that. And it's almost just an extension of what your bread and butter is, which is exactly what you're talking about. And then, Tim, what about you guys? What did you do with it?
Yeah, so we are fundamentally a community-based charity. It was the foundation of where we started. It was where we identified that there was a gap. There were great organisations doing lots of things across the country naturally, but we wanted ours to be community focused, so that in particular for men, they always had somewhere to go, someone to talk to, something to do, and support that was locally available from other men. So we reinvested, as we quite often do, back into local communities. The local Northern Beaches community. And for us, that meant the delivery of more mental health education and workshop programs. For us, one of our core 5 pillars, and that's where the rubber hits the road, right? You can create these really great and supportive safety nets of community-based support, but unless they have the skills, the tools, the knowledge, the confidence and the capability, sometimes that's where it comes unstuck and people can feel uncomfortable providing mental health support. And so the mental health education that we invested back into, as well as our growth, and we also managed to get some co-branded Westfield coffee cups for the blokes for their conversations, was an important part of investing back into community for us.
I love that. Again, and it's very much adding back into what it is that you're already currently delivering, and just kind of having that nice to have additions with the funding as well. That's awesome. I know you've both kind of touched on the importance of foundations as we've gone through today. Whether you're growing, scaling, delivering a new program, I know it's more sustainable when the processes and the procedures are right. I guess, Judy, what business fundamentals do you think organisations really need to have in place before they think about scaling?
Well, I was going to start with framing, but we've talked about that. That's okay. It's just so important. I think having a physical space is really important if you can. So in our case, we meet on a Tuesday in the city every week. We have been doing so for 8 years. We have a law firm who has been really helpful, K&L Gates, who's given us space and has also given us pro bono legal services. That's been fantastic. And I know we're really fortunate. And they, in fact, helped us also on our journey to get deductible gift recipient status, which is really hard to get when you're an environmental group. Anyway, so physical space is great, and people come and they look at the view and they think, oh my goodness, it's not what I expected. But that's fine. That's once a week. And even if it's not in a fancy office, it doesn't matter, just to get together and for everyone to share. And we often have things like lunch and learns where somebody might, talk about their expertise as well. And we'll talk about what's happening. What else? I think that obviously to find anyone who can help you with the legal and financial, you've got to recognise that you can't do it all. I mean, it's really important to be on top of everything, but to accept that you need that expertise. I think that you've got to think about things like your ethics clearances. We have to have working with children's checks for everyone. We also have Zoom capabilities as well. That's really important. I guess that goes without saying. Salesforce can be your best friend. All those practical things are really important. And now what else was there that I was thinking about? No, I think that's essentially it. Yeah, and just ensuring that you're communicating regularly with those organisations that you work with.
Yeah. And do you do anything that kind of allows your staff to be insured? Because I know you're Australia-wide. Is there anything you do with your staff to ensure that what they're delivering kind of remains consistent?
Yes, I forgot to mention that. That's really important. So we have, of course, a lot of resources. So we have a drive. And over the years, we've been developing so many, and we have an incredible team of educators led by an amazing woman, Nicole Lewis, and we have an amazing Chief Operating Officer. They both work part-time. And so what we do is when anyone comes along and they're new and they've signed those agreements, basically to say, that our copyright and everything, intellectual property is protected,
Also important.
Also really important. Then we ensure that they read. They'll do a deep dive into all our materials and resources. There's videos that we've produced over the years. I've done a whole lot of things. The educator has. She'll meet with all the, for example, potential educators. We have a lot of volunteers as well. Incredible volunteer organisations that do provide us with. We also work with a lot of universities as well. Increasingly, we are mentoring students who are coming to us, and we are basically training them, and they're getting accreditation for their courses. So that's pretty big. Interestingly, of all things, we have social work students increasingly interested in our work. And we have environmental students, and we have data people, etc. So yes, the resources and the training is very important on a regular basis.
Yeah, amazing. I think what I've always experienced is that having strong operations really comes down to having those like really clear structures and support systems that give not just the organisation but the people within it the confidence to grow. And a key takeaway for me has always been that foundations aren't just about processes, they're about people. And you've mentioned your volunteer network as well as your staff. I know, Tim, you rely quite heavily on a significant volunteer workforce. How many volunteers do you actually have?
55 volunteers.
Yep. 55. Wow. That is incredible. And I'm sure comes with quite a few challenges as well. But I'd love to hear more about what practices you've implemented to support them to deliver Mongrels Men's purpose really confidently.
Yeah, I mean, working with volunteers can be fun. It can be inspiring. And at times it can be a little bit challenging. We are dealing with people. But people are core to who we are, what we do, and most importantly, the impact that we want to have. So the people piece for us is critically important, and it starts with the board, and it works its way down and through the volunteers that help us and support program delivery. And so even something as simple as our board meetings, we start with director self-care, this idea of being able to look after ourselves, to hold ourselves accountable, because if we can't look after ourselves, we can't look after others. And so we breed that ethos back through the charity. We operate on 5 pillars, and so we make sure that they flow through our people as well so that we can have that impact. And the first is about community. You know, this idea of bringing 55 volunteers together, although they're all over the country, we have to form a safety net of support for them so that they can keep doing that work. And so we infuse not just the community at the local grassroots level where they're doing the work with men, but the community amongst the volunteers. And that feeds into our second pillar, which is connection. And so we create opportunities around structure. You mentioned structure, for them to frequently get together to connect. What are they challenged by? What are the opportunities? What is it that they would like to experiment with? What is it that we can do to better help and support them? And that comes through the communication part, right, which is our third pillar. We have regular forums where we have our community champions engage one another, but we also require or ask that they develop those safety nets outside. And that means being able to talk about what's going on and be encouraged to do so. And so we've also got a champion of champions that helps us run all of our champions and our volunteers. And so his role is to reach out, to connect, put a regular engagement framework in place to make sure that we can help and support them. The fourth is about movement. And this isn't about doing exercise. This is about just getting out of their way so they can do the work they need to. So just removing all of the friction, the compliance, the governance, the admin, the paperwork, support, listening to their ideas. They're good ideas. Not all ideas are good ideas.
Very true.
But just enabling them to do that work, to create their own momentum after they own their own communities.
Yeah.
But they can't do that without, and I touched on this a little bit earlier, our fifth pillar, which is education. And so this isn't just important for our communities, it's important for our champions because they need to feel confident and capable with the skills and the knowledge to be able to do the work that they do. And so for us, people are key to the impact that we want to have because we want to impact people. So not just living and breathing who we are and what we do, but how we do it and making sure that they feel empowered and supported.
Yeah, I love that. And I always find it's really important to find people who are really aligned with your mission and who can be those passionate advocates for you, or in your case, champions of the work that you do. And it's about being able to empower them and invest in them so that they're actually helping you build your capacity and your impact. I always love talking about people. It's always great. You've both shared really invaluable insights into how you both assess your growth readiness and the ways that our viewers can strengthen their operations. I guess thinking about your journey and how far you have both come, both, I believe, starting your organisations almost around the same time at like 2019, I think we spoke about. What's one lesson about building operational foundations you wish that you might have understood a little bit earlier, something that would really help organisations starting out today? Tim, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, this is a great question, and like with the benefit of hindsight, it's a beautiful thing, right? So looking backwards, I really wish that I had have put in place the structures and the foundations that I need today and going into the future back then. But being realistic about who we were back then, you know, I was a bloke that was organising a bunch of meetups and opportunities for blokes to get together on the northern beaches. I never envisaged that we would become a charity a couple of years later, that there would be so much demand for what we do. We knew there was a need, but I didn't know that there would be the demand to grow to scale. And so at that stage, I was focused on local community, and we've always been community focused. But I wish I had had that vision to have put that operational framework in place. And if I had have, that would be taking less friction points out for me now. And so they are fundamentally looking at everything from diversity of funding to mitigating the friction from an administrative or manual operating model point of view, embedding really early some of those structures around people and making sure that they were lived and breathed from almost day one. And then looking at how we can best support people to get to the impact piece, like understanding what the impact is that we wanted initially to get to where we needed to be to have the impact to grow to positively impact 1 million men. If I'd have been thinking about that in 2019, I would have gone about it very, very differently. But probably the best lesson for me is learned the hard way, right? Like I had to go through that process to ask myself those questions, to experience some of those challenges, to be able to pull those friction points out. Because you need to remain agile with broad frameworks so that you can move, so that you can adapt. And if I had been too rigid in my structure and planning, which is the way I am for the rest of my life, I don't think we'd be where we are. So retrospect is good, and with that comes a lot of great lessons.
Yeah, I think you do need to be dynamic in what's coming your way. And I also love that you mentioned, and both of you have throughout the session, is being able to understand those data points and being able to tell that story so that you can communicate it effectively, not just for the people who might be looking for your services, but the people who might want to invest in it as well. Judy, what about yourself?
It's very interesting listening to you, Tim, because I was thinking in a way that I've got a different orientation, and I'm thinking why. What I mean by that is I'm a child of mass media. I used to work in big newspapers and television. So I'm used to having, working for an organisation that has a huge reach. I had an incredible experience and career in that respect. When I was writing about environmental issues, I was so frustrated, as I said earlier, because I thought, why aren't more people, aware of this? This is disaster. We've got this thing called global warming, which it was called then. Why are we losing all these mammals? What's happening to Barrier Reef? This was in the late 80s. As I mentioned earlier, I went back to do a PhD, and I will save you my 8 years of PhDing, and I'll summarise it in one sentence, which is you've got to hit people over the head with facts, but simultaneously you have to give them positive, practical and scalable ideas and concepts. That's the B&B highway. So I had this big vision of, the B&B highway, I can see it. It's going to be the biggest regenerative urban corridor in Australia. So now we're in 4 states and we're in 250 locations. Early on, Costa interviewed me and he said, but we've got 10,000 schools. Why can't we be in 10,000 schools? That's where I'm going. Anyway, and so what I'm saying is that I had this really big vision. And I used to get really frustrated in the early days. It's like, oh, why aren't, more people coming on board? But I guess I had to be patient, and you have to build your processes and your organisations. You have to really passionately believe in your vision and communicate it properly and break it down. And so, yes, I just wish that I'd been a little bit more patient and not get so frustrated. When you do get the knockbacks, of course, it does happen. It does happen. And also, it's just so important to have someone who listens to you whinging. So my husband is continually listening to me whinging, and that's very helpful as well.
Always nice. So does mine. It is, but it's nice to also have that sounding board who is a little bit one step removed from it, who can kind of go and challenge your thinking in a little way, which is really, really helpful. Is there anything else that you think would be really important? I know you've had so many nuggets of information and different ways that we can approach things. Is there anything else you would like to share?
Yeah, maybe, because you just touched on support, right? So that's not just for you to be able to do that work to deliver on that vision. It's bringing the right people in, and we talked about that. And this is a lesson that I learned the hard way, but it was asking for help, right? Like you were talking about some of the organisations that you've worked with. I wish I had have asked for help sooner instead of thinking that it could have all been done. And the work that Westfield does and what I've been able to achieve together with Mongrels Men and Westfield in the last couple of years is a really good example of what you can achieve when you partner. Out of that comes growth and scale and motivation for organisations that want to impact community at a community level. I wish I had have asked for help sooner and been able to delegate some of those things out to other people to have moved quicker. Because my vision came after talking to people and realising that the impact, I didn't start with a vision. So it evolved out of what I saw was working. But I couldn't have done it without partnerships.
I think the only other thing I would add is that I probably didn't really consider the range of people that could help. So now we have retirees, we have people who are working but they want to give back, maybe one day a week. We have a whole range of students. So yes, I think just understanding that there are so many people that you can draw upon as well to help.
Yeah. I love that. And you're right, there are so many people who still want to be able to contribute and have skill sets that would otherwise be going to waste. And so it's such a wonderful opportunity to connect in and build that community around you. I think that's such a really integral part of what makes an organisation successful. It's not just the people who are doing the decision making on the day-to-day, but it's the people who can lean in and share your vision and really passionately kind of put it out there. I know we could probably speak about all of this all day, and we have previously as well. I absolutely love it. But unfortunately, we are probably going to have to wrap up just there. But what I love is that everything you guys have shared today, it really could apply at almost any stage of an organisation's journey, because I think as you continue to evolve and grow, those processes need to evolve with you. And so I think if you remain super clear in your vision and are always aligning back to that, from what you guys have both said, it sounds like those opportunities to identify growth will continue to appear. So, one, thank you so much for being here today. You have shared so much wisdom and been so open in your guidance, and I really appreciate it. If you viewing would like to learn more about PlantingSeeds and Mongrels Men, be sure to check out their websites. We are going to share a link to both of those in the post-event email. I would also like to thank you for joining us for our Westfield Community Seminar today. We hope that you found this session incredibly valuable. For those in centre, I hope you enjoy connecting with your fellow attendees, discussing what we've spoken about here today and building your community network. And as a reminder, if you're online and a Westfield Local Hero alumni, don't forget to share your thoughts in our Alumni Hub Facebook group. As always, if you are looking to learn more about how you can work with Westfield or have any additional questions about the Westfield Local Heroes program, please reach out to our team. We are always super happy to help. And you can reach us at westfieldlocalheroes@centregroup.com. On behalf of Tim, Judy, and myself, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you again soon.